I almost lost myself by loving an avoidant, but here's what actually saved me. Keep watching. I used to think I had low self esteem. That's what everyone told me. My friends, my therapist, every podcast, every book, every comment section. You're still with him because you don't love yourself. I believed it. For over a year, I believed it. And then I found out that was only half true. And the half I got wrong almost cost me everything. Because there's a difference between loving yourself and being obsessed with someone. And nobody had ever explained that difference to me. Not one person. Until I figured it out myself while I was still in the relationship, planning my exit in secret. If you're anxiously attached and you're loving someone who runs hot and cold, stay with me. This is the video I needed years ago. If you're new to this channel, I'm Marianna Turov. I'm an anxious attachment clinical specialist, and I ran a research in the year 2017 with over 10,000 anxious attached people from over 14 countries. And also, I used to be the most anxious attached person in the world. And that's one of the reasons that I became a psychologist and a researcher. Don't forget to subscribe, leave me a comment, and give me a like. It really helps my channel and my mission to rid the world of anxious attachment, because you and I know anxious attachment hurts too much. So, before I met my avoidant ex, I was fine. I was genuinely fine. I want to be clear about that, because when people hear she dated an avoidant and lost her self-esteem, they assume that the self-esteem was already broken, that she was primed for it. That's not what happened to me. I knew my flaws. I wasn't delusional about myself, but I liked who I was and I had things going for me. I had momentum. And that's the part that scares me the most looking back, because it means this can happen to anyone. A lot of people in my private practice tell me I was never anxious. I never had any anxious or attachment issues. I'm not sure why this happened to me. And that's the part that scares most people, because it means this can happen to anyone. Because this is not a broken person problem. It's what I call a slow leak. It didn't start with crumbs. And that's important to remember. It started with a pedestal. He made me feel like the most seen, most chosen, most important person in the room. That's how they get in. Nobody falls for a red flag on day one. You fall for the version of them that feels like the safest place you've ever been. I had one rule going into this relationship: no crumbs accepted. I didn't know yet that the pedestal was a setup for the crumbs, because that's exactly what happened. The intensity pulled back, the attention got inconsistent, hot, then cold, warm, then distant, and suddenly the boundary I swore I would never cross, I was crossing it. Not all at once, 1 inch at a time. And that's the part nobody warns you about. You don't break your boundaries in one dramatic moment. You erode them over time, boundary by boundary, just to keep the relationship alive. Here's what I didn't understand while it was happening. The relationship wasn't just taking my peace. It was taking my time, my actual life. I was so busy managing him, reading his mood, adjusting myself, doing the emotional legwork for the both of us, that my own growth just stopped quietly. No moment where I noticed it happening. My personal development became, how do I manage my avoidant partner today? That was it. That was the whole project I was working on, not myself, him. By the time I noticed it, it felt like it was almost too late. If you're in it right now, if your calendar, your energy, your whole nervous system revolves around one person's availability, I need you to hear this next part because this is where it changed for me. I was at a library. I mean, mind you, back then there was no social media where you can just entertain yourself, where you're just doing nothing or waiting. I stumbled into just a random book and it was called The Empath Survival Guide. Nothing dramatic. I wasn't looking for an answer. I was just reading. And one line stopped me completely. It said, if you're highly empathetic, you have to work on your own growth deliberately, on purpose, or it disappears into everyone else's needs. And I remember just sitting there thinking, mine is gone. My growth is gone. I have nothing right now that is mine. That was the crack in the whole thing. That was the moment I started asking a different question. Now, how do I fix them or how do I fix us? But what's actually self-esteem really? Because clearly what I was living wasn't it. Here's what I found. And this is the part I wish someone had told me on day one. By that time, I was already becoming a psychologist, so I had some resources to really investigate the difference between these two things. Self-esteem and anxious attachment are not the same thing. Your friends will tell you you don't love yourself when what's really happening is that your nervous system is on survival mode. Those are two completely different problems and they need two completely different solutions. And I'm going to tell you what they are. Low self-esteem is not about loving yourself. Mwah, mwah, mwah. I love you, Marianna. No. Or putting yourself first, feeling superior. True self-esteem is about whether you're actively developing and living out your purpose. If those two things go dormant, your development and your purpose, that's when self-esteem drops. That's it. That's the actual definition. Anxious attachment is different. Anxious attachment is a nervous system response, and it's about survival, about the fear response, about your body reacting to the inconsistency your partner is giving you, the way it will react to any other threat. Once I understood they were different, I stopped trying to fix one thing and started working on two things separately. My growth and purpose, I quietly started rebuilding the parts of my life I had abandoned, not to prove anything to him, just because it was mine again. And my anxious attachment, I started preparing myself for the withdrawal I knew leaving him will cause. The pain, the cravings, the pull to go back, the looking on his social media. I treated it like something to regulate, not something to be ashamed of. I did all of this secretly while I was still in the relationship because I really felt like a hostage because he was keeping me warm enough to stay but cold enough to connect. So I told myself, fine. If I'm a hostage, let me build an exit plan from the inside. There was exactly one place where anxious attachment and low self-esteem overlap, and that's your beliefs. Being with an avoidant person or a person that's emotionally unavailable, much worse, a narcissist, will train you to believe that you're not lovable, not dateable, not marriageable, or simply not choosable. The belief only changes by working on the self-esteem side, growth and the purpose side. The anxious attachment beliefs, the panic, the fear stories, the shame stories, those beliefs start to loosen on their own once you learn to regulate your nervous system and your impulsivity. Because you and I know there is a dark side of anxious attachment. A lot of impulsivity, a lot of anger, a lot of loss of control, a lot of what we call protest behavior. That distinction between the two changed everything for me. Not because it was easy, but because for the first time, I knew exactly what I was working on. If you take one thing from this video, let it be this. Stop letting people, even the people who love you, Stop letting them collapse your anxious attachment and your self-esteem into one diagnosis. I mean, what do they know? And be careful with some therapists that may not know enough about attachment science that may also collapse the two. These two things are not the same, and confusing them is exactly what keeps you stuck. Because you end up trying to love yourself more, but you just don't know how. When what you actually need is a nervous system regulation practice. Or sometimes you may try to regulate your nervous system when what you actually need is to go and rebuild a purpose you abandoned. Which one of the two is low? Sometimes it may be both. Work on them like two separate projects, the two separate projects that they are. I'm not going to sit here and tell you I did this perfectly or that it happened fast. It didn't. But the moment I stopped confusing the two, I started actually moving instead of just surviving. If this resonated with you, if you saw yourself somewhere in this story, tell me in the comments which one you think it's lower for you right now, your self-esteem or your anxious attachment regulation. I read every single one. And if you're still in that relationship, still doing that secret exit plan thing I was doing, you're not weak for staying this long. You're just early in the part where it starts to change. If you don't know where to begin, in the description box, I will leave you my anxious attachment healing guide where you can track where you are in your progress. Or if you're just starting, where do you need to begin? I'm going to keep unpacking this, how I actually rebuilt the growth side and how I got through the withdrawal after I left my avoidant partner and how I managed my pain and my anxiety. And I'm going to do that in the next videos. If you want that, subscribe, because this is exactly the kind of thing I wish someone had handed me years ago. And if you already know about anxious attachment and you want to take it a step further, I recommend my NeuroIdentity Masterclass that helps you reconfigure your anxious attachment identity into a secure attachment identity at the subconscious mind level. Please visit the description box for all the links you need, my social media and my newsletter. And I go live every Sunday at 2 p.m. New York Eastern Time, where I answer everybody's questions. And I really hope to see you there. I hope this video served you, and I will see you next time.